The stepmother forced her stepdaughter to become engaged to a beggar to humiliate her. On the day of the wedding, everyone was terrified by the secret the beggar revealed. The blistering sun over Aja roundabout in Lagos showed no mercy that day. Traffic crawled, hawkers yelled, and amidst the chaos, one figure sat unmoving on the cracked pavement, Ebuka, a 28-year-old man with tattered clothes, unkempt beards, and the kind of pain in his eyes that made even passing dogs glance twice. His ribs poked through his faded shirt, his lips were dry, his stomach groaned, but he stayed silent. Just one more day, Ebuka, he whispered to himself. Just one more miracle. But deep inside, he didn't believe it. He had stopped believing in miracles after what life had done to him. 2 Danfo buses honked past him. A child eating gala dropped a piece near him, but his pride, the only thing he had left, refused to let him crawl for it. They all see me as dirt, he thought. But once, I was someone. No one knew that the beggar on the street had once been a child of wealth. No one cared. Until that moment, the moment everything changed, across the street, inside a black SUV, sat Amara, a 24-year-old woman with calm brown eyes and a heart so soft, even street cats followed her home. She had just returned from volunteering at a school in Mushin and was on her way to her stepmother's boutique in Lekki. Her eyes caught Ebuka, and something tugged inside her. "He's starving," she said, opening her bag. She took out her food flask and reached for the door handle. But her hand froze. "Don't you dare," came the cold voice beside her. It was Lady Ifeoma, her stepmother. Elegant, proud, always wearing heels so high they announced her arrival 10 seconds before she entered a room. "These people are dangerous," Ifeoma spat. "They pretend to be hungry, but one day you'll help the wrong one and they'll stab you. I've seen it before." Amara's voice shook. "But he hasn't eaten. I can't just look away." Ifeoma's eyes narrowed. "You want to feed beggars? Fine. Let me give you one to feed forever." Amara looked confused, but said nothing. The driver turned into the Lekki Phase 1 estate. Ebuka remained behind, the same way she found him, still forgotten and tired. Later that evening, as twilight kissed the Lagos skyline, Ebuka shared a piece of bread a church sister had handed him with 2 other beggars under the pedestrian bridge. "Take," he said, breaking the bread. "No one should starve alone." A street preacher who had been watching quietly turned to a woman beside him and whispered, "That one is different. There's grace in his eyes. You can't fake that." What none of them knew, not the preacher, not Ebuka, not even Amara, was that fate had already begun spinning its dangerous wheel, because Lady Ifeoma was watching from a distance, in her private driver's car, with binoculars, and she was smiling. The silence in the Obianuju mansion was thick, the kind of silence that follows a storm and just before another begins. Amara stood in the living room, clutching her worn journal, her cheeks still warm from the slap Lady Ifeoma had given her minutes ago. "What did I do wrong?" she whispered to herself, tears slipping down her face. "All I did was offer food to someone starving." Upstairs, Ifeoma stood by her vanity mirror, applying crimson lipstick with slow, deliberate strokes. "You think compassion is a strength," she murmured, staring at her reflection. "But I'll teach you that kindness is a curse." Suddenly, the massive doors to the living room flew open with a bang. "Everyone to the dining room, now!" Lady Ifeoma's voice rang out like thunder. Chief Obianuju, Amara's father, emerged slowly from his office, rubbing his tired eyes. He was a shadow of the man he used to be, worn down by Ifeoma's manipulations, silenced by her poisonous tongue and beauty. "Is this really necessary, Ife?" he asked. "More than necessary," she replied. "It's urgent family business." They all sat. Then she dropped the bomb. "Amara," she began, smiling sweetly. "You've always wanted to help the poor. Isn't that right?" Amara blinked, unsure where this was going. "Yes, I just believe they deserve dignity." "Good," Ifeoma said, clapping her hands. "Then you'll be pleased to know that I've arranged your wedding." Dead silence. "To who?" Amara asked, her voice barely a whisper. "To the beggar from Aja." "What's his name again?" "Ebuka?" The room spun. Amara stood up so fast her chair screeched. "This is madness," she cried. "You can't be serious. A beggar, a stranger. You want me to marry him?" "Oh, but I can, my darling," Ifeoma said, sipping her wine. "And I am, unless, of course, you'd prefer your brother's hospital bills to stop being paid." Amara froze. Her knees buckled slightly. You wouldn't I?" Ifeoma leaned forward, her voice like poison wrapped in silk. "Do you know how expensive dialysis is? I can cancel all the payments tomorrow. Let's see how long little Chike survives without treatment." Amara's fists clenched. "You're a monster." "No, I'm a mother," Ifeoma said. "A stepmother, but still. And it's time someone in this house learned obedience." Chief Obianuju slammed his fist on the table. "I won't allow it." Ife turned to him slowly. "Then be ready to lose your company. You think I don't know you used company money to cover Chike's medical trips to India? One call and you'll be in prison." Silence. Tears ran down Amara's face. She looked from her father to her stepmother, betrayal on one side, cruelty on the other. "So that's it," she whispered. "You want to humiliate me, destroy my life, just because I gave food to a man on the street?" "No," Ifeoma stood. "Because you defied me in public, and for that you'll live with the street, you'll marry it." Meanwhile, Ibuka was sitting by a gutter in Aja sharing a bottle of pure water with 2 other homeless men. "I'm telling you," one man said, "that woman who gave you that bread the other day, she was different. She had heaven in her eyes," the other added. Ibuka smiled faintly. "She was kind. And kind people like that don't cross paths with people like me more than once." Just then, a black Prado SUV pulled up in front of them. 3 bodyguards stepped out. Then the passenger door opened. Lady Ifeoma stepped out, dressed in an all-white suit, sunglasses glinting in the evening sun. Everyone froze. "Ibuka," she said, her voice cool. "Get in. Your life is about to change." The scent of lemongrass and black soap filled the grand marble bathroom in the eastern wing of the Obianuju mansion, a bathroom so large that 3 of Ibuka's former street brothers could have lived comfortably in it. Ibuka, standing under the cascading hot water, barely moved. It wasn't just the steam that fogged the mirror, it was his thoughts, his memories, or rather the gaping void where memories should have lived. His fingers ran slowly over the silver tap. Gold accents glinted around the walls. The water felt too clean, too foreign. It rolled down his bare skin like a visitor that did not belong. "What is this place?" he whispered. He turned slightly and caught his reflection in the misted mirror, a blurry silhouette. He wiped it with the towel, revealing a face he hadn't properly seen in years. He gasped, not just from the shock of seeing himself this clean, but from the recognition, a strange, eerie recognition. The man in the mirror looked like someone he should have known. From a long time ago. Not just a version of himself. Someone else entirely. He stared closer. That's when he noticed it. The small pale mark behind his left ear. An oval-shaped birthmark. He'd always had it. But now, in this glowing room, under the soft chandelier light, it looked familiar. A sharp, distant image flashed through his mind. A woman smiling down at him, singing in soft, warm tones. Igbo. "Hudson, my baby Hudson. Mama is here." Ibuka blinked rapidly, stepping back. His heartbeat quickened. The voice, that song, that name. "Hudson?" He clutched the sink, his knuckles white. "Why would I hear that name now? Who is Hudson? Who was that woman?" A knock interrupted the spiraling thoughts. "Sir," the butler called gently, "Lady Ifeoma said to remind you to wear the black kaftan. Your shoes and accessories are also laid out." Ibuka didn't answer. He stood there shirtless, staring into the mirror with a look that was equal parts terror and awe. Is this my second life? Or the beginning of the truth? He turned toward the luxurious clothes waiting for him, the fabric so rich it made his former rags feel like insults to cloth itself. He touched the kaftan. It was soft, smooth. He hadn't worn anything this fine since when? He whispered. panicking slightly. Why can't I remember? He inhaled deeply, dressed slowly, and avoided the mirror this time. Upstairs, in the west wing, Amara sat in silence on the edge of her queen-sized bed. The AC hummed softly. Her wedding gown, newly delivered and still inside its silk cover, lay across the armchair near the window, but she hadn't even unzipped the bag. Her eyes were dry, too dry, the kind of dryness that came only after hours of silent weeping. Her body sat stiffly, but inside, she was spinning. What kind of life is this? She thought. What kind of woman becomes the wife of a man she knows nothing about? A man she found on the street? Her hands clutched a photo frame, a picture of her and her younger brother, Cheek, taken before his kidneys failed, before the hospital visits, before the financial despair. He was smiling then, holding a balloon. She was standing behind him, arms wrapped around his tiny shoulders. She whispered his name like prayer. Cheik, I'm doing this for you. Then, as if powered by some unseen strength, she stood up. She walked slowly to the wedding gown. She unzipped the cover and pulled out the dress. It was beautiful. A fitted white gown with tiny hand-stitched pearls and lace sleeves. Imported from Italy, no doubt Lady Ifeoma would never accept anything local for an Obi-Anuju bride. She held the gown to her chest. Maybe if I close my eyes hard enough, I'll wake up. And this will all be a bad dream. But she didn't wake up. And tomorrow was the wedding. Downstairs, the living room had been transformed. Red velvet chairs had been arranged in a semicircle. Silver trays of small chops were being passed around by silent waiters. Large framed photos of Amara and Ibuka, taken just hours ago during a staged photo shoot, were being hung up on the wall. Lady Ifeoma walked in, slowly, like a queen returning from war. Her heels clacked against the marble tiles as she circled the room, inspecting everything. She paused near one of the photographs and stared. Ibuka's face, something about his jawline, his nose, even the way he slightly tilted his head in the picture, it was familiar. Too familiar. Her throat tightened. It can't be, she whispered. She turned abruptly and walked to the bar, pouring herself a drink. Her hands shook slightly. The glass clinked against the table. She downed it in one gulp. No, it's impossible. He was gone. That child is gone. This can't be him. She turned again to the photo. But if it is, a single thought dropped into her mind like a knife. If this beggar is who I fear he is, then I have brought my own destruction into this house. The night was unusually quiet. Not the usual Lagos night filled with car horns, barking dogs, and distant laughter. No. This night was still too still. Even the trees in the Obi-Anuju compound stood as though holding their breath. Ibuka sat alone on the guest room bed. He hadn't touched the food served to him. The jollof rice sat untouched, the chicken still steaming gently. His eyes remained fixed on the window. Moonlight spilled into the room, casting soft silver shadows across the tiled floor. A soft breeze blew the curtains inward, almost like a presence entering the room. He wasn't cold, but he shivered. Hudson, he whispered again. That name had come to him 3 times today, uninvited, unexplained, but familiar, like a long-lost friend walking back into your life without a word. He reached up and touched the birthmark behind his left ear. Was I ever called that? He stood up and walked slowly to the dressing mirror. The room was silent except for the gentle creak of the wooden floor beneath his feet. The mirror stared back at him. Again, that strange feeling that the man in the reflection was both himself and someone else. Someone wealthier. Someone who had once smiled easily, not guardedly. Someone who used to belong. A faint knock startled him. He turned sharply. Silence. He walked to the door and opened it gently. No one was there. But on the floor, a single item had been placed. A white envelope, his name was written on it, not as Ibuka, but in delicate, cursive handwriting. Hudson. His blood ran cold. He bent down slowly, picked it up, and stepped back into the room, shutting the door behind him. His fingers trembled as he opened it. There was no letter inside, just a single photograph. He gasped.
It was an old photo, faded with time. A young boy, maybe 6 or 7 years old, smiling with his mother beside a large, elaborate fountain. Behind them stood a mansion that looked vaguely familiar. And on the woman's blouse, just beneath her collarbone, pinned to her dress, was the same golden rose brooch that Lady Ifeoma always wore. Ebuka stumbled back and fell onto the bed. He gripped the photo tight. That's her. That's my mother. He stared at the child in the photo. And that's me. A wave of nausea swept through him. His chest tightened. Memories began to push at the edges of his mind like whispers from a locked room. He clutched his head and shut his eyes. And then, darkness, then fire, then screams. He was standing outside a large house. The night was filled with shouting. He was no older than 7. Flames licked the windows. Black smoke poured into the sky. "Hudson, run!" a woman's voice screamed. He turned and saw her, his mother, trying to push through a locked gate. Another figure grabbed her from behind. A woman, wearing heels, her face hidden, but her voice sharp. "You should have left quietly, Adaku. Now you'll lose everything." "Please, my son is in there," the mother screamed. "Exactly where he belongs." A slap, then gunshots. The dream shifted again. A muddy street, a crowd, blood, a boy's hand letting go of another. Ebuka's body jerked upright in bed. He was drenched in sweat, breathing fast, eyes wild. The photograph lay on the floor beside him. He picked it up, his hands shaking. That woman, that brooch, Ifeoma. He couldn't say it yet, couldn't believe it, but something in him had shifted forever. Meanwhile, Lady Ifeoma stood in her bedroom, staring at the same photograph, a second copy. She poured herself another drink, the ice cubes clinking loudly. She stared into the mirror. "Hudson Namdi Asa, I watched you burn. I saw the reports. I saw the blood. You're not supposed to be alive." She clutched her rose brooch tightly, eyes narrowing. "But if you are, if you really are Hudson, then I'll finish what I started." She slowly pulled out her phone and dialed a number. It rang once, twice. Then a voice answered. "Madam? Find out everything about that beggar. Everything." "Yes, madam." She ended the call and stared at the photo one last time. No loose ends. The sun rose slowly over Lekki Phase 1, casting a soft orange glow across the Obianuju compound. But in the mansion, there was no peace, no calm. Not in Ebuka's room, where the same photograph from the night before now lay beside a rumpled bed, its edges curled with sweat. Not in Lady Ifeoma's suite, where a full glass of untouched wine still sat on the dresser, forgotten. And certainly not in Amara's room, where she lay awake, fully dressed, eyes wide open, staring at nothing. It was the morning of her wedding, but it felt more like a funeral. Amara, still in her wrapper and night blouse, sat silently at her window. She hadn't slept, not even for a minute. Her makeup team had arrived as early as 6 a.m., but she hadn't let them touch her. Not yet. Not until she could steady her heartbeat. Her fingers traced the cold steel bars of her window as her eyes followed 2 doves fluttering around the mango tree in the garden. She remembered the first time she saw Ebuka, that broken man by the roadside, with hunger in his eyes but pride in his bones. "He didn't beg," she whispered. "He just sat there, like someone waiting for something he'd lost long ago." She touched the hem of her wrapper and shut her eyes. "Who are you, Ebuka? What is this life we're being forced into?" Her mind drifted to her younger brother, Cheek, lying weak in the hospital bed just kilometers away. The last time she visited, he had whispered, "Don't cry, Amara. God will surprise us." She let out a soft sigh, barely a sound. Maybe this is the surprise. Elsewhere in the compound, Lady Ifeoma was pacing her private study, dressed in a fitted black gown with gold trimming. Her usual flawless calm was replaced with quiet agitation. In her hand was a small silver flip phone, the one she used for delicate matters. She pressed a button. The line rang. "Madam," the voice answered. "We've done the search. We found something disturbing." She sat down slowly. "Talk." "Ebuka was found unconscious in Aba over 10 years ago. Head injury, memory loss.
The church kept him in a home before he ran away. Her breath caught. The church. What name did they register him under? Hudson Ez. She dropped the phone. It hit the marble floor with a loud clack. For several seconds, she didn't move. Then she stood, walked to the mirror, and slowly pinned on her golden rose brooch. So it's true. She turned sharply to the window. And if he remembers everything I buried. At the main gate, it was just past 9 a.m. when the gate security guard, Malam Sani, noticed a figure standing outside the compound. He was an elderly man, dressed in an old kaftan. His beard was grey, and he held a worn envelope in one hand. His other hand trembled slightly, not from age, but from the weight of memories. "Good morning, sir," Malam Sani called. "Can I help you?" The man nodded slowly. "I need to speak to someone in this house, urgently." "About what?" The old man held up the envelope. It contained a photograph, the same photograph Ibuka had received the night before. Only this one had something written on the back. In fading ink, "Hudson taken before the fire, Obianuju estate." Sani squinted. "Where did you get this?" "I was his nanny, the boy in the picture. I've searched for him for over a decade. I think he's here." Sani stepped back. "Wait here." He picked up the intercom and dialed inside. Inside the house. Ibuka stood near the dining room dressed in a fitted cream-colored agbada. The fabric was so smooth it almost shimmered, but he looked uncomfortable, out of place. His eyes wandered. Every corner of the house made his skin crawl. The walls, the chandeliers, the smell of floor polish. He knew this house. He didn't know how. But every room whispered something to him. Then the butler approached quietly. "Sir, there's a man at the gate, elderly. Says he has something for you. A photograph." Ibuka's heart stopped. "What kind of photograph?" "A child and a woman, at a fountain." Ibuka grabbed the banister to steady himself. "Bring him in." A few minutes later, the old man entered slowly. Ibuka watched him with wide eyes. The man stopped 3 feet away and burst into tears. "Hudson, my boy, you're alive." Ibuka's lips parted. "You know me? I carried you on my back. I fed you pap. I watched your mother die in front of you." Ibuka staggered back. "Tell me everything," he whispered. The old man opened the envelope and handed him the photograph. This was taken 2 days before the fire. Ibuka flipped it, read the handwriting. His hands shook violently. "The brooch. The woman who took my mother away. She wore the same rose brooch." "What's her name?" the old man asked. Ibuka turned slowly, eyes burning. "Lady Ifeoma." Amara sat before the mirror in her room, dressed in a white silk robe. The makeup artist hovered behind her, unsure whether to begin. Amara had barely spoken a word since she sat down. The bride-to-be wasn't glowing. She wasn't smiling. She was lost. Her fingers clutched a gold necklace, her late mother's, and her eyes, though calm on the surface, held a quiet storm beneath them. "Are you okay, madam?" the makeup artist finally asked. Amara blinked. "What?" "Should I begin? The photographer's team is ready downstairs." She nodded slowly but then added, "Just give me a few more minutes." The woman bowed and quietly stepped out. Amara remained seated. She stared at herself, not in admiration, but in disbelief. "Who is this woman in white?" she asked the reflection. "What is she marrying into?" For the first time since the whole madness began, doubt crept into her chest, not just about Ibuka, but about the whole charade. Something didn't feel right. Not about Lady Ifeoma's sudden obsession with the marriage, not about the way her father had fallen silent, not even about Ibuka's eyes that, despite his poverty, seemed to carry a story too big for the street. "There's something you're not telling me, Ibuka," she whispered, "and I'll find out before I say I do." Downstairs, in the smallest parlor, hidden behind tall curtains and heavy wooden doors, Ibuka and the old man, Pa Jeremiah, sat across from each other. The photograph lay between them on the table like a sacred relic. Neither had spoken in minutes, just silence, heavy, almost sacred. Finally, Ibuka broke it. So you were my nanny? Pa Jeremiah nodded. Your mother, Madam Adaku, trusted me with everything. Your food, your clothes, even your bedtime prayers. You were her world. Ibuka's hands trembled. And my father? A pause, a long one. Then, your father, Chief Nnamdi Eze, was murdered, along with your mother. Ibuka's jaw tensed. Murdered? By who? Another pause. Pa Jeremiah's eyes filled with water. I don't know for sure, but I remember one night. You were barely 7. I heard shouting, the chief accusing someone of betrayal. A woman, a staff member. Who? The old man hesitated. Then slowly he whispered, Ifeoma. Ibuka's eyes widened. That name. I knew it. I knew it wasn't coincidence. She wore the brooch, the same golden rose. Jeremiah nodded solemnly. She was your mother's personal assistant. Smart, quiet, ambitious. But there were rumors that she was having an affair with a political rival of your father. Ibuka stood up. And now she's here, living in the very wealth she helped destroy, controlling my stepmother, my marriage, my life. His voice shook with anger. She made me a beggar, then brought me into this house to humiliate me further. She doesn't even know she's invited her ghost back to the table. Jeremiah stood too. You must be careful. That woman is dangerous. She destroyed your past. She will not hesitate to destroy your future. Ibuka walked slowly to the mirror on the wall. He looked at his reflection again. This time he didn't flinch. No, she won't, because I won't let her. Meanwhile, in the private lounge, Lady Ifeoma sat with a glass of chilled champagne, legs crossed, gaze fixed on her phone. She wore a stunning wine-colored gown with a high-slit-her outfit for the reception. Her phone buzzed. A message appeared from an unknown number. The man at your gate has entered the house. Her heart skipped. She slowly stood up and walked to the large painting near the hallway. Behind it, a hidden safe. She pressed her fingers in a pattern only she knew. The safe opened. Inside, wrapped in velvet, was a small golden handgun. She stared at it for a long time. Hudson, if you are who I think you are, then today must be your last wedding. She closed the safe. Back in Amara's room, she was now dressed in her wedding gown. The final touches had been applied. Pearls shimmered on her veil. Her hair was styled in a beautiful updo with gentle curls framing her face. She looked like a princess, but her heart was racing. Her phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. The man you're marrying is not who he says he is. Meet me behind the mango tree, now. She read it again, and again. Then she picked up her gown and left the room without a word. The compound behind the Obianuju mansion was quiet, too quiet for a wedding day. Guests had started arriving dressed in glittering agbadas, flamboyant gels and head-turning aso-ebi. The sound of car doors slamming, greetings in multiple Nigerian dialects, and distant laughter filled the air on the front side of the estate. But behind the house, beneath a large mango tree, near the servants' quarters, 2 figures stood in silence. Amara, still in her wedding gown, heels sinking slightly into the soft grass, stared wide-eyed at the frail old man before her. Pa Jeremiah, his voice shaking slightly, was midway through a confession that felt more like a spiritual unburdening. Your husband-to-be is not a beggar, he said. He is Hudson Nnamdi Eze, son of Chief Nnamdi and Madam Adaku, and heir to one of the most powerful families this state has ever known. Amara's lips parted. She didn't speak. Couldn't speak. He was presumed dead during a mysterious fire 10 years ago, Pa Jeremiah continued. The same fire that claimed his parents. But I knew he survived. I searched for years. Amara's fingers trembled. No, you must be mistaken. Ibuka can't be Hudson. That's impossible. Look at this, he said, handing her the same photograph he had shown Ibuka. She took it with unsteady hands. She stared. There he was. A child with familiar eyes. A smile that looked too much like the man she'd be marrying in under an hour. Next to him, a woman wearing a bright blue dress, and the same golden rose brooch that Lady Ifeoma wore every Sunday. Amara staggered back. This brooch, I know this brooch. Lady Ifeoma wears it. Always. Pa Jeremiah nodded grimly. Because it used to belong to Madam Adaku Hudson's mother, the woman she betrayed. Betrayed how? The old man's lips trembled. Lady Ifeoma was Madame Adaku's personal assistant, trusted, quiet, but ambitious. Rumor has it she was working with your father's enemies, leaking secrets, planting lies. When Madame Adaku found out, it was too late. The fire happened days later. The family was destroyed. Hudson disappeared. Amara held the photo tighter. And now, she's making me marry him? To silence him, or finish what she started. Silence fell. The wind rustled the leaves. Amara stepped back. I need to see him. I need to see Hudson. Jeremiah nodded. But be careful. Lady Ifeoma suspects something. I saw the way she looked at him today. There's fear in her eyes. Let her be afraid, Amara said softly, because she's not marrying a beggar to me anymore. She's marrying me to a prince she tried to bury. Inside the mansion, the wedding hall was glowing with elegance. Golden drapes, candle-lit centerpieces, a long white carpet stretched from the back door to the altar. The air was heavy with perfumes and whispered gossip. Ibuka, dressed in a regal white agbada embroidered with silver thread, stood at the altar. He didn't fidget, he didn't smile. His eyes were calm, but inside, a war was raging. Every tick of the clock reminded him of who he was and who he used to be. Hudson. He mouthed the name silently. He was beginning to own it. Today, I stop surviving, he whispered. Today, I begin remembering. The pianist started playing softly. Guests turned toward the door. Lady Ifeoma, standing by the front row, forced a smile, but her grip on her clutch tightened. Inside the clutch was the small golden handgun. Her plan had changed. If he speaks, if he remembers everything, I'll end it. Here, today, in front of everyone if I must. Meanwhile, Amara entered through the back. She walked quickly through the corridor, lifting her gown to keep from tripping. 2 makeup artists ran after her, confused. Madam, they're playing your song already. Madam, you're late. But she didn't stop. She was heading for the private lounge where Ibuka waited. She needed to look him in the eye before she walked down that aisle. Before she said, I do. Backstage, Ibuka heard the door click. He turned. She stood there breathless, flushed, glowing. He took a step toward her. They didn't speak at first. Their eyes did the talking. Then she whispered, Who are you? Really? He swallowed hard. I don't know everything yet, but I remember a name, a song, a fire, and a brooch. Amara nodded slowly. The brooch belonged to your mother. Lady Ifeoma wears it now. He looked at her gently. You don't have to go through with this. But Amara shook her head. Yes, I do. But not because I'm afraid. Not because of Chika. Not because of her. She stepped closer. I'm marrying you because I believe the truth deserves a witness. A long pause. Their fingers touched. Let's go, she whispered. Together, he replied. The entire hall stood as Amara emerged from the hallway. A hush fell over the crowd. No music, no whispers, just silence. She walked slowly down the long white carpet, her gown glistening like moonlight on water. Each step echoed deliberate, calm, heavy with purpose. By the time she reached the altar, every phone in the room was pointed at her, but she didn't see any of them. Her eyes were locked on Ibuka, or rather, Hudson. He stood tall in his agbada, his expression unreadable. But when Amara reached him, something flickered in his gaze, gratitude and grief. A soft instrumental resumed. They faced each other. Behind them, Lady Ifeoma clutched her designer clutch like a loaded gun because that's exactly what it was. She smiled tightly, but her hands were sweating. Her plan was unraveling, and her past was slipping out of its grave. The officiating pastor stepped forward, a man in his 60s with a calm voice and searching eyes. Dearly beloved, we are gathered here today. His voice floated like incense over the crowd, but the tension in the air was as thick as smoke. Amara heard none of the prayers. Hudson barely nodded through the declarations. They were both waiting not for a yes, but for her, the woman in the front row whose brooch gleamed too brightly. who hadn't unclenched her jaw since Amara entered the room. "Do you, Ebuka Obina, take Amara Obianuju?" He turned slightly. "Before I answer." Gasps. Cameras clicked. The pastor paused. Hudson turned to the guests. His voice was calm, steady. "I have something to say, and I must say it now before I enter into a covenant under false identity." Lady Ifeoma stood. "No." All heads turned. She stepped forward, smiling sweetly, but her eyes were wild. "This man is unstable. He was a beggar. He has no parents, no family, no records." "That's a lie," came a deep voice from the back. Everyone turned. An elderly man dressed in a modest kaftan was slowly making his way down the aisle. "I was there when he was born. I changed his diapers. I held him the night his parents were killed." Gasps again. One woman fainted. "Who are you?" the pastor asked. "My name is Jeremiah Onu, former head steward of the Eze family and nanny to their son." He reached the altar and pulled something from his bag. "This," he said, holding up a faded birth certificate, "proves that this man is Hudson Namdi Eze." He passed it to the pastor. Lady Ifeoma's body swayed slightly. That's impossible," she stammered. Jeremiah turned to her. "You were there the night of the fire. You told Madam Adaku you'd stay late and help lock up. You were the last person seen with the family before the explosion." Amara stepped back, stunned. Hudson's fists clenched. "Why?" he asked. "Why did you do it?" Ifeoma looked around. Dozens of eyes pierced into her skin. "Because I was tired of being a servant," she hissed, the mask slipping. "They had everything: wealth, power, respect, and I had nothing. Just orders, chores, insults. I was smarter than her. Smarter than all of them. But no one saw me." The pastor stepped back. Hudson stared at her not with hate, but with something worse: pity. "You burned a family for recognition?" "I didn't mean for it to go that far," she whispered. "I just wanted them out of the way." Then she opened her clutch. The guests screamed. She pulled out the gun. Hudson didn't move, but Amara stepped in front of him. "No," she shouted. "If you want to kill someone, kill me, but this ends today." Time froze. Then a hand clapped over Ifeoma's wrist from behind. Swift, silent. It was Chief Obianuju Amara's father. Tears filled his eyes. "Enough, Ifeoma. Enough destruction." He slowly pried the gun from her hand. Security moved in. Lady Ifeoma collapsed to her knees. She didn't cry. She didn't fight. She just stared blankly ahead. Minutes later, the hall was emptying slowly. Guests left in murmurs. Some cried. Some recorded everything. Hudson and Amara sat quietly on the front pew. He held her hand. "You still want to marry me?" he asked softly. She turned to him. "I was never marrying a beggar," she said. "I was marrying a man with dignity. Now I know he's a prince too." She smiled. "Let's finish what we started." The golden evening sun fell softly over the Obianuju mansion, but inside its gates the air was anything but calm. The wedding had ended in chaos. The cake stood untouched. The music had been silenced halfway through the first hymn, and now the mansion was under siege by journalists, camera crews, bloggers, and curious neighbors who had heard the unthinkable. A beggar turned out to be a billionaire heir. The bride's stepmother pulled a gun at the altar, and a dead family came back to life through a name: Hudson Eze. Hudson sat quietly in the family study, still wearing the now creased agbada from the ceremony. He hadn't changed. He hadn't moved in nearly 30 minutes. His eyes were on the floor, his thoughts far beyond. "Namdi Eze," he whispered. "I am your son. But how do I become him again?" The study smelled of old books, wood polish, and secrets. A dusty oil painting of his father, Chief Namdi, still hung on the wall. Hudson stood and approached it. He looked into his father's eyes, painted, but full of pride. "I was just a boy when they took you. Now I must become you." In another room, Amara, now in a simple wrapper and blouse, was helping her younger brother Cheek sit upright. He had arrived from the hospital earlier that day, still frail but strong enough to speak. "So, He's not a beggar, Cheek asked, eyes wide. Amara chuckled softly, adjusting his pillow. He's actually richer than everyone in this estate. Cheek's mouth fell open. Even richer than that woman with the loud eyelashes and the G-Wagon? Even richer than her, Amara said. They both laughed, but her smile faded as she sat beside him. Things are changing, Cheek, very fast, and I don't know what happens next. Cheek tilted his head. Do you love him? She looked away. I don't know if it's love yet, but I know he's not just a man with a past. He's a man with purpose. That same night, in a dark office in Abuja, hundreds of kilometers away, a man with a crooked smile stared at his laptop. Senator Kelvin Maduka, 61, connected, dangerous. Once a quiet donor to Chief Nnamdi's rivals, now a forgotten name from the same fire that destroyed the Eze family. He watched the wedding footage silently, the outburst, the accusations, the dramatic reveal. He leaned back in his leather chair. So, he survived. He turned to his assistant. I want every file we have on Hudson Nnamdi Eze, every orphanage, every shelter, every police report. If this boy remembers too much, he paused, we'll bury him, again. Back at the mansion, Hudson stepped into the guest room where Pa Jeremiah was seated on the bed. The old man was reading a weathered Bible. He looked up. Hudson? Hudson swallowed hard. Thank you. For everything. Jeremiah smiled. There's still more to remember. He reached into his bag and pulled out a leather folder. Inside were documents, deeds, bank records, letters, all linked to the Eze estate, the one that had been declared burnt to the ground and quietly absorbed by political hands. This is what they took from you, Jeremiah said. Land, shares, power. Hudson's hands shook as he opened the folder. And this, Jeremiah added, is what they fear you'll take back. Meanwhile, in a quiet holding cell, Lady Ifeoma sat on a wooden bench, her head bent. The officer walked in. Someone posted your bail. She looked up, confused. Who? The officer didn't answer. She stepped out of the cell, her heels echoing against the concrete. Outside, under the yellow light of a street lamp, stood a man in a dark suit, his face hidden in the shadows, his hands in his pockets. She approached slowly. He spoke without turning. You ruined the Eze family once. You can do it again. But this time you'll listen. She froze. His voice was old, powerful, deadly. Senator Maduka, she whispered. The man smiled. Welcome back, Ifeoma. The rain came without warning. It wasn't the kind that thundered, no. It was quiet, sneaky, like the kind that falls during a funeral. Inside the Obianuju mansion, Hudson stood by the window, watching water streak down the glass like teardrops from heaven. A laptop blinked silently behind him, waiting for the press release document he was meant to sign. The document that would officially declare him Hudson Nnamdi Eze, rightful heir of the Eze estate. But something wasn't letting him sign. He turned back to the table. On it sat a small, unmarked envelope. It had arrived that morning. No stamp, no sender name, just placed on the doorstep like a whisper from the past. He picked it up again, tore it open, and read. Do not stand before cameras. Do not speak to the press. What they did once, they will do again. You survived once. You will not survive a second time. A friend. His heart pounded slowly. A warning, he whispered. But from who? He turned the envelope inside out. Nothing. No initials, no scent, no mark. He sank into the leather chair and stared at the words again. This wasn't fear. This wasn't a prank. It was a threat and a plea, wrapped in one. Upstairs, Amara was sorting through Lady Ifeoma's former room. The police had cleared it hours ago, but no one had bothered to go through the personal items she left behind. Chief Obianuju had refused to enter. Let it all rot, he had said. But Amara needed answers. She opened a drawer lined with velvet cloth and perfume bottles. Behind a set of bangles, she found a small wooden box, slightly cracked. She opened it. Inside lay a second brooch, but this one was different. Same golden rose shape, but this one had something carved at the back, something scratched faintly into the gold, almost as if someone had hidden it in a rush. She squinted, then read it aloud. N.E. April 11th, 13. Her chest tightened. Nnamdi Eze Estate, she whispered. The date of the fire. She turned the brooch over and stared at it. Then it clicked. This isn't Ifeoma's brooch. This was Madame Adaku's. She flipped open her phone and pulled up the wedding photo from days ago, the one where young Hudson and Madame Adaku stood by the fountain. Zooming in, she saw it. The same brooch. Tears filled her eyes. This was taken from her body. That's how Ifeoma got it. She clutched it tightly. She didn't just steal money. She stole a mother's memory and wore it proudly. Elsewhere in Lagos. Inside a sleek black Mercedes parked at the back of a hotel, Senator Kelvin Maduka puffed slowly on a cigar. His assistant handed him a tablet screen showing social media posts, flooding with hashtags. #Hudson is back, #Eshe returns, #The Beggar Prince, #Justice for the Ease family. The senator's smile disappeared. The boy's image is becoming too clean, too noble, we can't fight pity. Should we stop the press conference? The assistant asked. He shook his head. No, let him go, let him speak, and then let the accident follow. Accident? Maduka turned. His eyes were dead. What's the use of a press conference if the man never makes it back home? Back in the mansion, Amara ran to Hudson's study, still holding the brooch in her hand. She burst through the door. He stood up, startled. Amara? She dropped the brooch on the table. She stole this. He picked it up slowly. His eyes widened. He turned it. Saw the initials, the date. He sat back down. Hard. This was on my mother the night she died. Amara nodded. I think it's the real one. The one she wore the night of the fire. Then Ifeoma took it off her. Silence. Hudson stared at the golden rose, remembering the warmth of his mother's chest as he clung to her. I'm going to speak tomorrow, he said finally. At the press conference. Even after the warning? He looked at her. If I die, I want to die telling the truth. Amara shook her head. You won't die. She stepped closer. Because I'll be standing beside you. He met her eyes. For a second he said nothing. Then he whispered, Thank you. The morning came dressed in grey. Lagos for once was quiet, not in its usual way, but the kind of quiet that precedes disruption, the kind that unsettles birds, the kind that makes dogs bark for no reason. Ibuka Hudson Nnamdi Eze stood at the balcony of Victory Towers Hotel overlooking the crowd forming outside. He wore a deep navy blue kaftan with silver embroidery freshly pressed. His beard was neatly trimmed, his eyes, tired but clear. This is it, he whispered. A knock at the door. Amara entered, wearing a sky-blue buba and wrapper, her hair tied back simply but regally. She walked up to him and gently adjusted his collar. Ready? Hudson nodded. Even if I'm not, I have to be. She handed him the brooch. Wear this. Let them see what was stolen. He stared at it for a moment, then pinned it gently to his chest, just above his heart. Let's give them truth, he said. And if truth fails, she added, let's give them legacy. Downstairs. A fleet of press vans, cameras, and microphones choked the courtyard of Victory Towers. Some guests were invited, most were not, but everyone was here. Inside the hall, a stage was set. A massive backdrop read, The Return of the True Sun, Hudson Ease Speaks. Social media was on fire. The world waited. Across the street, parked in the shadows between a row of abandoned buildings, was a black SUV with tinted windows. Inside, 2 men sat. Dark shades, bulletproof vests, no emotion. One cleaned a silenced pistol. The other loaded a tranquilizer dart into a concealed weapon. A phone buzzed. One message. After the speech, make it clean. No witnesses. Back in the lobby. Hudson stood with Amara Chief Obianuju and Pa Jeremiah, now walking with a cane. A security officer nodded. 5 minutes. Amara squeezed Hudson's hand gently. Say what you were born to say. He nodded, then walked forward. Inside the main hall, The lights dimmed slightly. Camera lenses adjusted. Hudson stepped onto the stage. He approached the podium slowly. Each step a whisper of the journey behind him, the roadside dust of Aja, the empty belly, the mop and bucket, the fake wedding, the real betrayal, the rebirth. He reached the microphone. The lights flashed, phones rose, and then he spoke. My name is Hudson Namdi Eze. A collective gasp. You once knew me as a beggar. Some of you walked past me. Others threw food. Some crossed the road. I don't blame you. I might have done the same. But what you didn't know, what none of you could know, was that I once belonged to a family, a legacy, a name they tried to erase. He paused, held up the brooch. This belonged to my mother, Madame Adaku Eze. She died wearing it, until someone took it and wore it like a trophy. Cameras zoomed in. Hudson's voice dropped. This is not just a press conference, it's a resurrection. I did not come here to ask for pity. I came here to take back what was stolen. Truth, honor, justice. He pointed to the front row. And I'm not here alone. I stand with the woman who saw value in me before the world knew my name. Amara looked up, stunned. And I dedicate this moment to the man who stood by my crib when I had no voice, Pa Jeremiah, and to every child who's been forgotten, buried, and made to believe they don't matter. The audience clapped, loud, emotionally. A few wept. Hudson closed the folder in front of him. They buried me once, but I rose, and I remember now. Everything. Thunderous applause shook the room. But outside, the black SUV's door creaked open. The two men stepped out, silenced pistol, dart gun, black caps low. In the corridor. Amara stepped out of the side exit, her heart full. She needed a breath, a moment. Then she saw them, two men, no press tags, no emotion. One raised his wrist, something glinted. Instinct took over. She turned back and screamed, "Hudson!" The shot echoed through the hotel like a scream in a cathedral. People dropped to the floor, cameras crashed, chairs toppled, and in the middle of it all, Amara fell, not from pain, but from instinct. She had pushed Hudson to the ground and thrown herself over him. A second shot rang out. A glass panel shattered behind them. Hudson covered her head as they rolled behind the podium. "Amara, are you hurt?" "No, I'm okay. You?" "I'm fine." But someone else wasn't. Across the stage, Pa Jeremiah had collapsed, a red stain blooming slowly across the chest of his white shirt. Hotel security stormed the hall like a wave of thunder. Two men in black were pinned to the marble floor. One tried to reach for something in his boot. He was slammed down with a crack. The other spat out blood from a split lip. Screams turned to sirens. Chaos blurred into flashing blue lights and heavy boots. Hudson scrambled to Pa Jeremiah's side, clutching his frail hand. "No, no, no, Baba, stay with me. You hear me?" Jeremiah opened his eyes, barely. "You said your name, you remembered. That's enough. Don't talk, help is coming, please." Jeremiah smiled faintly. "Your father would be proud. My job is done." His eyes closed, but not in death. He slipped into unconsciousness. Hudson broke. The strong man, the reborn heir, the poised speaker, he broke. His forehead dropped against Jeremiah's shoulder, shaking. Hours later. In a private police station near Ikoyi, the two gunmen were being interrogated under tight surveillance. Hudson sat in the observation room, Amara beside him. The men didn't speak at first, but after a few hours, one of them cracked. He was younger, couldn't handle the silence. "We weren't paid to kill him," he said. "Just scare him. Make him leave Lagos." "By who?" the inspector asked. The boy's voice shook. "Senator Maduka, at first." "At first?" the inspector pressed. "But the order changed. 2 days ago we got a different instruction, from someone else." Hudson leaned forward. "Who?" The boy hesitated, looked at the glass right at Hudson, though he didn't know he was behind it, then whispered, "Chuka Obianuju." Amara gasped. My brother." Hudson looked at her, stunned. "I thought he was abroad." "So did I." Later that night, in the dim shadows of a lounge in Dubai, a young man sipped from a glass of champagne, scrolling through news footage on his phone. Chuka Obianuju, tall, smooth-skinned, charismatic, dangerous. He smiled faintly as he watched Hudson's speech. Then the gunshot. Then the chaos. Then the headline flashing across the bottom of the screen. Assassination attempt on Hudson Ease. 2 suspects in custody. Chuka raised a toast to the screen. You should have stayed a beggar, Hudson. Back at the hospital in Lagos. Hudson sat beside Pa Jeremiah's hospital bed. Machines beeped gently around them. The old man was still unconscious but stable. Amara walked in quietly and sat beside Hudson. They didn't speak at first. Then she whispered, My brother tried to kill you. Hudson nodded slowly. I don't think he wanted me dead. Amara looked up. Then why? Because he wants what I now have. Power, legacy. My name means something now, and that threatens everything he's built in the shadows. Amara trembled. My family. What are we? Hudson took her hand gently. Whatever they were, you are not them. A pause. Then she whispered, voice low and terrified. Do you still want to be with me, knowing I'm from them? Hudson stared at her, then wiped a tear from her cheek. You saved me long before I remembered who I was. That's the only family I care about. 3 days had passed since the shooting. The headlines hadn't stopped. Beggar billionaire survives assassination. Eze heir threatens political order. Inside the Obianuju family divide, brother or betrayer. But none of them knew the full truth, not yet. Hudson sat alone in his father's old study, now reclaimed and relocated to a secure location in Ikoyi. The polished desk still smelled faintly of cigars and paper, an odd comfort. Beside him sat a voice recorder, freshly delivered by a detective. We recovered this from Ifeoma's holding cell, the detective had said. She didn't know she was being recorded. Hudson stared at the small black device, then pressed play. Her voice filled the room, broken, low, rambling like a woman unraveling. I didn't mean to kill them. I just wanted the documents gone. I thought burning the study would erase it all. But she was inside. Madame Adaku. She was screaming. I ran like a coward. The boy wasn't supposed to survive. I checked his room. It was empty. I thought he'd gone with the driver. Pause. And Chuka, little snake, he knew. He saw me. I paid him to stay quiet, and he did all these years. But now he wants more. Greed never sleeps. Hudson sat still, then leaned back, hand over his face. So it was both of them. At the airport, Chuka Obianuju stepped onto Nigerian soil again, dressed in all black, shades covering his sharp gaze. A small entourage flanked him. Paparazzi were waiting. Of course. He smiled calmly. Gentlemen, he said to the press, I'm here to support my sister and my family. What happened was a misunderstanding. No comment beyond that. But his smile didn't reach his eyes. Later that evening, Hudson received a call from an unknown number. He answered. You and I need to talk, said the voice. Smooth, confident, threatening. Hudson didn't flinch. Where? Somewhere quiet. No press, no police, just you and me. Agreed. The next day, at a secluded rooftop lounge in Victoria Island, the two men met. Hudson arrived first, dressed in a plain black shirt and jeans. No security. Chuka came 5 minutes later, impeccable as always. Designer shoes, golden cufflinks, a serpent in silk. They didn't shake hands. Chuka sat. I didn't think you'd come alone. I didn't think you'd come back at all, Hudson replied. A pause. The city stretched beneath them, glittering, unaware. Then Chuka leaned in slightly. You've made quite the name for yourself, brother. We're not brothers. Same house, same bloodline. That makes us something. You tried to have me killed. Chuka chuckled softly. I tried to protect everything I built. You arrived like a ghost and stirred sympathy, but you didn't grow up in our world. You don't understand the weight of the name you carry. I understand legacy, Hudson said. I'm reclaiming mine. Then let's cut a deal. What kind of deal? Drop the charges. Let me walk. You take the estate. I keep my political leverage. You'll have your mansion and headlines. I'll have the boardrooms and back doors. Hudson studied him, then pulled out a phone and tapped a button. Lady Ifeoma's confession began to play. Chuka froze. You recorded her? The police did. And now it's with my lawyers. If I go down, you burn with me. Chuka's jaw clenched. What do you want? Hudson stood. Leave Lagos. Withdraw from the senatorial race. Publicly renounce your claim to the easy assets. You disappear, or I destroy you. You think I'm afraid of being destroyed? Hudson leaned closer. No, I think you're afraid of being irrelevant. A long pause. Chuka looked away, then smiled. You're more dangerous than I thought. And you're less clever than you believed. Hudson turned and walked away. Back at the hospital, Pa Jeremiah finally opened his eyes. Hudson sat beside him. You made it, he whispered. The old man smiled faintly. Of course I did. I still have one more story to tell you. The day was quiet. The first truly quiet day in weeks. No media vans outside the gate, no assassins in black SUVs, no press conference, no gunshots, no gasps, just the soft chirp of birds and the quiet hum of ceiling fans. Hudson sat beside Pa Jeremiah, who was still recovering but strong enough now to sit upright, spoon porridge slowly and speak clearly. Your mother, she knew something was coming, Jeremiah said. Hudson looked up. What do you mean? The old man reached under his pillow and pulled out a small, weathered envelope, the edges brittle. The ink faded. She gave this to me the day before the fire. Told me to hide it somewhere no one would find. I waited until you remembered who you were. Now it belongs to you. Hudson took the envelope. It was addressed in elegant handwriting. To my Hudson. If I don't wake up tomorrow. His throat tightened. He opened it carefully. Inside, a handwritten letter. Madame Adeku's letter. My precious son. If you are reading this, then heaven chose not to let me stay. Forgive me, my love, for leaving too soon. Forgive me for the fire I couldn't stop. You are more than the name Eze. You are more than wealth, more than our estate. You are my sunshine, my heartbeat. And I want you to grow with kindness, even in a world that rewards cruelty. I have hidden the key to your father's final documents beneath the third floorboard of the east corridor in the house. Don't trust everyone with your father's smile. Some smiles lie. Live boldly, and never let grief become your crown. I will always love you, and I will always be your mother. Adeku Hudson folded the letter with trembling fingers. Amara walked into the room and saw his face. Hudson. He held up the letter silently. She walked to his side, read it, and sat down beside him without a word. She knew, he whispered. She knew she wouldn't survive. But she believed you would. Across town, a national broadcast was beginning. Chuka Obianuju, dressed in ash-colored agbada with a calm, distant expression, sat before a line of microphones. Good evening, Nigerians. I come today not as a politician, but as a brother who has caused hurt. Cameras flashed. I officially withdraw from my senatorial campaign and relinquish all claims to the Eze estate. I will be leaving Nigeria indefinitely. Gasps rippled through the room, but he wasn't done. He paused, then looked directly into the lens. Some people are born into legacy, others dig it out of the earth. But let no one forget even ghosts cast shadows. Then he smiled, not warm, not regretful, predatory, back at the Eze estate ruins. Later that evening, Hudson returned with a flashlight and crowbar. The house was still mostly ashes and bricks, fenced off, forgotten. But the east corridor remained. He stepped through cracked tiles, careful, every step a memory. When he reached the third plank, he stopped, knelt, pried it open. Inside, wrapped in waterproof cloth, lay a metal lockbox. He opened it slowly. Inside were papers, documents, signatures, and a small photograph his mother and father at their wedding, holding a baby Hudson. He held it against his chest. You kept everything. He didn't notice the car parked at a distance behind the trees. Inside it, a figure watched through binoculars, then slowly picked up a phone. Yes, he has the box. Should I proceed? A pause. A woman's voice replied, Not yet. Let him think he's won. We'll strike when the world is clapping. Click. The courtroom smelled of old wood, starch, and tension. Inside, Hudson Eze stood in a dark navy suit, quiet, calm, and focused. Beside him sat his lawyer, Barrister Ajayi, known in Lagos for never losing a case involving land or legacy. Across the aisle were 3 different lawyers, 3 different corporations, 3 different thieves, each one representing a piece of the Asia estate that had been quietly sliced, sold, and swallowed over the past decade. Hudson's hands were clenched tightly behind his back. My father built an empire with sweat, not shortcuts. I will take every piece back, even if I have to bleed for it. The judge entered. Everyone rose. Court began. Meanwhile, in a hotel lobby not far from the courthouse, Amara sat alone, staring at her phone. She had received 3 messages since morning. No number, no name, just this: "Your mother didn't die in her sleep." Then, she tried to stop Ifeoma, but someone else stopped her first. And now the latest one. "Check the back of her wedding portrait. You'll understand." Her chest tightened. She had never known her real mother. She was raised by Lady Ifeoma since she was 9. Her only photo of her biological mother was a formal wedding frame, hanging on the wall of her old room. She stood quickly. "I need to see it." Back at the courthouse, Barrister Ajayi's voice rang through the air. "My lord, we present documents recovered from the original Eza family estate, deeds, purchase agreements, transfer records, none of which were legally signed over." He handed them over. Gasps followed. The defense tried to object, their voices faltered. Then Hudson stepped forward to give his testimony. "I was 7 when my parents died. I was presumed dead. My identity was stripped, but I survived. And I remember. My father did not raise thieves. He did not build for vultures. He built for legacy." The courtroom murmured. The judge nodded. "The evidence is compelling. I'll return with a decision in 48 hours. But as Hudson stepped down, he noticed something odd, one of the defense lawyers smiling slightly. A smile that said, "You walked into something." At the Obianuju mansion, Amara entered the abandoned guest room she once called hers. Dust covered the frame. She reached for the wedding portrait of her mother and father, turned it around. There, taped to the back, was a folded paper. She pulled it off carefully, opened it, and read, "To whoever finds this, I fear for my life. Ifeoma and my husband are keeping secrets. Money has disappeared. Something is wrong. I love my daughter, Amara. But if I disappear, please tell her. She was born in truth, not in shame. Ngozi Obianuju, Amara's mother." Amara's hands shook. "Papa knew." "And Ifeoma?" Suddenly her phone buzzed again. Same number. "Now you know. The man you love is not the only one with a stolen past." She fell to her knees. What is happening? Back at the courthouse steps, Hudson exited to flashing cameras and microphones. "Mr. Eza, how confident are you? Do you think the corporations will settle? Are you seeking criminal charges?" He answered calmly, "I only want justice, not revenge." But as he stepped into the car, a van nearby exploded, not a bomb, but an intense fire burst. People screamed. It was a warning. On the windshield of Hudson's car, tucked under the wiper, was a single white card. Hudson picked it up. One word: back off. Later that night, Amara met him at the mansion, her hands trembling. "Hudson, we need to talk." "What happened?" "I found a letter. My mother knew she was being silenced." Hudson looked at her, confused. "Silenced by who?" "By Ifeoma. And my father." A long silence. Then Amara whispered, "I think my father helped Ifeoma destroy your family." The evening rain returned, drizzling like secrets. Inside the Obianuju mansion, the dining room had been set for 6, a rare family meal to celebrate peace, as Chief Obianuju had called it. But there was no peace, not at that table, not with the air so heavy, not with Hudson and Amara sitting beside each other, both knowing the truth that had yet to be spoken. Across from them, Chief Obianuju sipped from a glass of wine, smiling stiffly. His new political associate sat beside him, Mr. Tokunbo, a sly businessman with ties that ran too deep. The table chatter was shallow, fake laughter, fake cheer. Only Pa Jeremiah, freshly discharged and still weak, seemed completely at peace, slowly picking at his food and watching the others. Then suddenly, he coughed. Once, twice, then violently. His spoon dropped, his chest tightened. "Papa!" Hudson called out, leaping from his seat. Jeremiah gasped, clutched his throat, eyes bulging. "He's choking!" Amara screamed. But Hudson's eyes saw something else. Jeremiah wasn't choking on food. He was foaming at the mouth. Minutes later, paramedics arrived. Jeremiah was unconscious. Again. But this time, it wasn't natural. Hudson paced the hallway as the medic shook his head. This wasn't food poisoning. It's concentrated, fast-acting, synthetic. Someone planned this. Hudson's mind spun. But why him? Why not me? A nurse ran over. Sir, we found this under his seat cushion. She handed Hudson a napkin crumpled, blood-specked, written on it in shaky handwriting. They know. Don't trust Tokunbo, or her. Hudson's blood ran cold. Her? Meanwhile, in Amara's old bedroom. She stared at the wedding portrait again, at her mother's note. Her phone buzzed. Another message. Same number. The brooch wasn't the only thing Ifeoma stole. Check the chest she left behind in the garage. Amara didn't wait. She ran downstairs. In the dusty garage beneath cobwebs and cracked suitcases she found it. A wooden chest with rusted hinges. Inside, letters, photos, documents. One of them was shocking. A birth certificate, not hers, but someone named Ezina Namdi Eze, Ezina. Another note was tucked behind it. Handwritten, in Ifeoma's script. I took one child to silence the name, but I kept the other, to raise as my own. No one will ever know that Amara is also an Eze. Amara dropped the paper. What? No. Back in the hallway, Hudson stared at the napkin. Don't trust Tokunbo, or her. Amara ran in, clutching the letter. Hudson, two found something. He turned to her, shaken. Pa Jeremiah was poisoned. What? He left a warning. He said not to trust Tokunbo, or her. Amara stepped back. Her hands trembled. Who does he mean? Hudson's voice cracked. He might mean you. Amara's face twisted in pain. Me? Hudson, no, I would never. Then explain this, he snapped, showing her the napkin. Explain how someone could poison a man sitting right beside you. She held out the birth certificate. Because I just found out I'm your blood. Silence. Hudson blinked. What? She placed the certificate on the table. I'm your sister, Hudson. Ifeoma. She didn't just kill your family. She adopted part of it. The mansion was silent, but not the peaceful kind. It was the kind of silence that came after truth was shouted, slapped down like a gavel, and left to hang in the air. Hudson sat alone in the garden, staring into the fountain where his mother once dipped his feet as a baby. In his hand was the letter Amara had found, the birth certificate proving she was Ezina Eze, his sister, the same woman he had loved, kissed, trusted with his future. His chest burned. Why didn't anyone tell us? He whispered. Footsteps approached. Amara. Tears streaked her cheeks, but she held herself upright. I didn't know, Hudson, I swear. He looked up at her, and for the first time, didn't speak. Not out of anger, but heartbreak. You saved me, he said finally, but they stole you too. I thought I was Obianuju's daughter. Now I don't even know who I am. He stood. You're Ezina, my sister, which means we don't get to love each other the way we thought, but we get to protect what's left of our family. They embraced. Tears mingled with rain. But as they pulled apart, a security guard ran up, breathless. Sir, madam, someone is here. Says he knows everything. Inside the drawing room, an elderly man stood waiting. He wore faded traditional attire and walked with a limp. His name? Mr. Kalu, the former driver of the Asa family, missing since the night of the fire. Hudson's heart stopped when he saw him. I thought you were dead. I faked my death. I had to. Why? Kalu's eyes burned. Because I saw who lit the fire. Amara gasped. Was it Ifeoma or Chuka? Kalu shook his head. No, it was Chief Obianuju. The Eze estate was quiet. Chief Namdi had called a private meeting with Chief Obianuju, his childhood friend and business partner. There were rumors of fraud, of betrayal. They argued. Voices rose. Madam Adaku tried to calm them, but Obianuju snapped. You think your family is untouchable. You think your legacy will outlive mine. He stormed out, but not before leaving a lighter on the edge of the desk. An hour later, the east wing was engulfed in flames. Mr. Kalu had seen him exit the house from the back gate, holding a petrol can, back in the present.
Hudson staggered back. My fiancé's father killed my parents? He wanted to absorb your father's shares, merge the companies, then take it all. But your mother resisted. Amara was shaking. He used Ifeoma to distract everyone, to frame her. Kalu nodded. She played her part, yes. But Obianuju lit the match. Hudson turned. His voice was hollow. And now he raised my sister, as a daughter. At that exact moment, Chief Obianuju entered the mansion, returning from a private meeting. He walked in smiling, removing his agbada, humming lightly, until he saw Amara Hudson Kalu and the security team staring at him. Then he froze. What's the meaning of this? Hudson stepped forward. Your meaning is finished. Kalu handed over an old phone, a device from years ago, hidden in the garage. On it, a voice note recorded accidentally the night of the fire. No one must know, Adaku is too strong, but a fire forgets names. Obianuju's face fell. Cameras flashed from outside. Journalists had already been alerted. Police sirens echoed down the street. Amara stepped forward. I called them! Obianuju looked at her. I raised you! No, she said. You raised my ignorance. 2 days later, the High Court ruled in Hudson's favor. The easy estate was returned. Obianuju was charged with conspiracy, arson, and manslaughter. Chuka fled Nigeria. Ifeoma was transferred to a mental facility, and Pa Jeremiah finally opened his eyes to freedom. But what the public never knew was the private heartbreak between Hudson and Amara. They remained close as siblings, but the love they once shared, the romantic kind, became a bittersweet memory.